Universal basic income has been under discussion since the 1980s. It was formulated a gentleman by the name of Guy Standing. He was the person from ILO who formulated the idea of universal basic income. Now, why I say this is that it has taken 40 years for this issue to be put on the table in Bangladesh, and I want to congratulate my colleagues from CPD, and particularly Tawfiq, for producing an outstanding professional paper, which is better discussed, I would say, in a meeting with the finance advisor and his whole team for possible address and inclusion in the forthcoming budget which he is going to prepare. Now, I say this because all of us here and all of you here have been participating in CPD dialogues for many years. And one of the significant features of this dialogue is that they were largely academic discussions where we had no serious expectation that this would become an input in policy making. Today, we are sitting here in very different times. We have at the head of the government Professor Muhammad Yunus, who has spent his lifetime struggling against poverty, and not theoretically, but actually participating in programs which have changed the lives of millions of people. So if there is any one leader, not just in Bangladesh, but around the world, who is going to take any policy proposal on poverty seriously, it is going to be Muhammad Yunus. So what I now tell you is that this is no longer an academic discussion, and this is no longer an academic paper. This is a paper which, because of its quality and the serious research input which has gone into it, and the analytical input, has the possibility of being taken seriously. Now, if you look around the table, I have just next to me Amir Khusro, who has participated in many dialogues, for whom most of these discussions were interesting but academic. Now we have the prospect of addressing this to a prospective finance minister. So, so therefore, this
Sir, you would have preferred to be a foreign minister.
So this ceases to be a theoretical conversation. On my right and on my left, I have people who have been entrusted by the caretaker government to prepare recommendations on the state of the economy. Now, this again is not an academic exercise. This is going to provide the basis for prospective reform agendas to be initiated by the interim government headed by Mr. Yunus. So what I would now ask all of you is to take this exercise much more seriously than a series of conversations based on sound bites. This needs very interesting, intensive discussion to diagnose this as a innovative for Bangladesh, not innovative globally, but innovative for Bangladesh, major policy option for addressing the issues of poverty alleviation. And I would certainly expect the two of you to bring this specifically to the attention of Professor Yunus and, of course, Salahuddin. And to the extent that you can have a serious conversation with him, professional discussion where we are discussing the scope for using this as an operational program, how far any element of this could be incorporated in the forthcoming budget, which I don't know if permitted, they may be preparing for the next financial year, 75-76, if permitted, as circumstances go. So in those circumstances, this discussion has a new potential, and all significant discussions of a policy implication now in what used to be civil society dialogues have now been elevated to a new stage where it should be taken a good deal more seriously than it has. Now, as far as the specifics of this program are concerned, I think the importance of the universal basic income idea, and remember that this is not just one option. There are 4 options which have been put on the table, which need to be related to both to their operational viability as also to the financial capabilities of the government. But there is one important variable which needs to be taken into account, and I don't know whether I missed this in the small print of the paper, and that is the political economy of implementing a program of this nature. Because historically, all programs which implied income transfers through various social protection programs were conditioned by the political environment in which these programs were carried out, and problems of both exclusion and inclusion became major factors in the way this was delivered, because essentially all forms of public expenditure, but particularly welfare-oriented, were highly patronage-oriented and were a major political resource for a government in power as to how they were distributed and to whom they were targeted. Now, whatever portfolio you may assume, assuming that you do assume a portfolio, this will be no less relevant to a prospective government as to whether your behavioral traits will be different from your previous occupancies in positions of responsibility. Because in my knowledge, no single government in my living memory has actually not used transfer programs as an instrument of patronage in order to enhance their political acceptability to various constituencies. And so whether, as a consequence of the presence of UNUS and the reform programs initiated, this can be taken forward and we can move into a new age with Junaid Saki, presumably in opposition, holding a prospective government accountable for seeing that patronage is not an instrument of distribution. We should look at this program from that perspective, that how can you make it patronage-free and instrumentalize it on that basis. This is an element which I don't think you have incorporated in the way you have presented it in terms of the comparative prospects. But otherwise, I congratulate you on a very serious professional work which deserves much more than to be discussed in a series of sound bites in what was meant to be an academic discussion. We are living in a new age, and let us now conduct ourselves on that assumption. Thank you.
Thank you.